have one winning film from 4 participants who competed for that award. And this is the Student Project Week Film Award. And the movie that you are going to see following the presentation of the awards is really a very interesting one, Silent Exposure, that was selected by a panel of faculty who viewed the 4 competing presentations and chose that one. And we thought something that looked kind of like an Oscar, since this is the award, would be the appropriate award. It is accompanied by a certificate. So, but nonetheless, we are starting a new tradition, and we are very proud because historically you can consider yourselves forever the first recipients of this award. So can I ask Kayoko and Dawn and Christopher to come to the podium and receive their awards, please. Congratulations. And we're not going to ask you to thank your parents and weep, but if you would just stay at the podium for a minute. And this is for Dawn. Congratulations. Please stay at the podium. And Christopher, this is your award. Congratulations. And if you will very briefly, okay, so switch of the Oscar, which says that it's a popular award already, and you're going to keep it. So if you could just very briefly tell us the most important feature of that movie. I know, Grace, you're going to take over and be the presenter, but I'm sure before we see the film, we'd like to get a short glimpse of what this meant to you.
So the most important part of the film, that's hard to concise. I think we'll let Chris go last, since you'll see, it's Chris will have most to say probably. The most important thing about this film is that, you know, it's the story of one family, but it could be any family. And it can happen to anyone, and it can happen again in the future. So that's what I would say.
The Vietnam War is not over as long as the people suffer from it.
Yeah, and the most important thing for me doing this film was, you'll see it's a personal film about me and my family. It was just important to go back and research and really like find out the details of what really happened. And I was fortunate enough to do it with these guys and document the experience of finding out new things. And I'm glad, you know, out of all the horrible things that happened, that this is definitely one of the shining good things that happened.
lead the discussion? I know for
When it comes to your students, they have some questions about the class itself, how it's organized.
And I'd like to say that it wasn't highlighted before, it's a collaborative between the Integrated Media Arts Department and the School of Public Health. It's Health Policy and Management over there and MFA, right? Anybody want to get started?
Yeah. This is can anyone hear me?
You can hear me?
Okay, yeah. So this is a question in general. So for those of us in the audience who are unfamiliar with Agent Orange or other agents, Agent Purple, Agent other colors variety, can you give us some background as to what was the purpose used for? And I believe I didn't really hear as to how much was used during the time. I saw the picture where it went sky high during that time frame. But in terms of the overall quantity that was used, to get some background information that'd be helpful.
Yeah, so Agent Orange is a combination of a few different chemicals, but the chemical called dioxin, which is in Agent Orange, is the real chemical that's harmful to you. So it was used in Vietnam to defoliate the jungles so we could better see the enemy. There's a lot of guerrilla warfare going on, and they thought by defoliating the jungles, it would be an easier fight.
So it's to kill the troops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also to destroy crops as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And tons of this was dispersed.
So this is a mechanical. I've been to Vietnam on Agent Orange related activities. So have any of you had the opportunity to get to Vietnam? That's one question. The other is just to make a movie. Where'd you get all that documentary footage from?
Yeah, we haven't been to Vietnam before, but Greg, you want to talk where we got the footage from?
We use the public domain. And about 2 hours. And I was so surprised that watching the footage. Just bomb killing people. I was so shocked. I'm from Japan, and U.S. military used the Agent Orange at the U.S. military bases in Japan. And now over 250 veterans, U.S. veterans, filed for compensation. Agent Orange.
And I believe Jackie Oakes also gave us some footage from her documentary that she did back in the 80s.
Spoke about the half-life is longer, it's very long. So wondering about what is going on in Vietnam now. The jungles have brought back, but actually was traveling there, and there were no birds. Do you have information on what the levels are there now for Vietnamese?
So we didn't focus so much on what's going on in Vietnam. We could do a whole other film on that
It's a
alone.
different question.
But I do know that you're seeing effects in the second and third generation of the Vietnamese people that are having just all kinds of genetic complications. So we know that it's having long-lasting effects.
I watched the documentary film made in 2005 by Australian Broadcasting Company. children were born with disabilities.
How to make a movie that's going to have an impact. That's been and it's personal. That was beautiful portrayal, and is making the score very extremely strong science points. Just how you thought about that? How did you put that together? It's so
I mean, I knew if we were going to do this subject, I wanted to make it personal, but in order to back the personal up and just have a family talking about their father, you get experts talking about it as well. One of the real interesting points that I don't think we covered as much in here, but we were talking to Dr. Raymond Singer via Skype for a couple of shots, but he was talking about the difference between short and long-term high exposure, and also short and long-term low exposure. I thought it was interesting because you can definitely, when Peter Jackson tells this story about his dad flying behind the airplane, dispersing the chemical, I mean, that's definitely high exposure. I think like with my dad, I mean, when you saw his base, there was like nothing. It was just flat. It was like kind of sand or dirt. So I mean, I'm kind of like on the feeling of his exposure is on the long-term slight exposure level. It was really like hard to, and that's why, and the whole thing with like liver cancer, the liver like being an organ that's hard to I guess prove because everything passes through the liver. So that's kind of like what the trouble is now between the organ and the low amount long-term stuff.
I just needed to ask Professor Bernie about the class itself. How many students usually are in your class, and what are your? I'm expecting Christopher got an A, or what are your expectations from that class? And
we've only run the class once, and the expectation was that everyone would participate in making a film, and that at the end of the class, you would have a 20-minute film, 15-minute film that you could show the class. And, many students, including the students you see here today, continued to work on their film after the class was over, but they certainly had product to show. And there were 11 students in the class, is that right? 11 or 12? Something like that. Yeah, and there were 4 groups, which made a film. All of which got shown at one of the first Fridays. Did you ask me?
I think I'm so impressed that I'm thinking like we should twist your arm to have this class every year.
Well, we're going to give it again in the spring, and if people are interested, get in touch with me. And the class has no formal prerequisites. In this first go-round, the public health students were invited to participate in the actual production of the film, and Professor Gold has said that she thinks that if public health students want to do it, that they should take some classes or have some experience, at least how to operate the equipment before they show up to class. It's not very
We have time for maybe 2 more questions.
I have a question for Professor Bernie and for the students. And I think it's a good idea to have fine arts and public health. And I just wanted to find out from you what the impetus to having this idea and what are you trying to, what is your objective with the class? And then from the students, I'd like to know, what is your main takeaway from mixing fine arts with the public health, and what's the highlight for you and with the class?
Well, I was interested in it for a number of reasons. I'm working on a documentary on the desegregation of hospitals under Medicare, and that made me think that this was a medium that our students were very much interested in, speaking to the public about public health. This is a medium that we can use, and so we should learn how to use it. And there is a course similar to this that's done with integrating media arts and urban studies, which makes films about topics related to urban studies, and I thought that we should try it too, and IMA was really interested in it, and they're thinking that one of the things that they can offer as a program is to allow their students to be able to make topic-focused films, topic-focused documentaries. That would be useful. And I think it would be really useful for the School of Public Health to have, maybe Sunday a concentration meeting.
We had one more question.
I was just going to say it was good to mix the film students and the public health students to find like a happy medium in the film itself, because like as film students we're probably just like, oh, let's just go for everything, like all the emotions and stuff, but then you have public health students be like, oh, there's some statistics in here. You're like, oh no, statistics, that's boring. Like, but to find like a balance of that. It can work out well.
Just as a comment, I thought you did a great job of boiling down a very complex scientific area that was discovered like in 1964 and it's expanded enormously since then.
That's why he got the Oscar.
Absolutely. And just to wrap up, this is timely because the United States has just opened up the a functional site to clean up the dioxin at Da Nang in Vietnam, and that was last month. It's actually active now. It's a site where they're collecting the soil, so it's a timely topic moving forward.
Yeah, Gene Brassman and I were there June 2 years ago.
And what's next for this film?
Yes. When is the next viewing?
Or is it being used for political action?
Well, the next, we still have to send it out to like a lot of places, but the next screening is going to be May 25th down in the Washington, D.C. area. It got into the GI Film Festival, which it has like the top, like I think 52 military independent films of the year. So it's
Thank you. So I've been asked to invite people over to the podium presentation awards, which are happening next door.
These are two first-time viewing of movies and first-time podium presentations. So
Coming in, please join us. I'm very happy to welcome you tonight to this panel of our GPH students. And you'll see that our GPH students engage in research in many different ways. Everybody who's getting a GPH does a dissertation as a very major piece of research. And two of our students tonight are going to be talking about their dissertation research. But people also do research at their jobs, and just because they're interested, because there are problems in public health that people want to find out about. And we'll hear of all of the different types of research tonight. Our first presenter is Sonia Gonzalez-Gladstein, who's going to present on her dissertation research. Do you want to stand up here, or would you rather?
Sure.
Yeah, why don't you come up here? And we found that on our first panel.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to just pause and let a few last folks step aside. Thank you for joining us. So I am Sonia Gonzalez-Gladsing. I take pause because I still rarely use my married name. But I wanted to share with you tonight. I will get to what my dissertation is about, but I wanted to talk just briefly how I ended up getting here for the students who are in the room. Those of you who have an MPH and are thinking what's next. So I actually earned my MPH from Columbia University through the Population and Family Health program, and I was convinced that I was done with school. And I was eager to get to work, to become a community advocate, to work with young people. I always had a strong connection working with young adolescents in New York City. And so when I decided to come back and earn a doctorate, it's really, I consider myself an accidental researcher. And it was the many years of experience. I have about 15 years of experience prior to earning my doctorate that really informs my research and the approach that I take and the kind of research that I'm interested in. The last thing that I'll say about that is that a lot of my work experience was in New York City anyhow, with young Black Latina women and young men under 25 years old. I co-founded the Young Black Latina, the Young Women of Color HIV/AIDS Coalition. And this was a collaborative effort with many community-based organizations. It still exists today. To really respond to the elevated rates that we were seeing, specifically among the population for STDs and HIV. So I tell the story of I was training peer educators to become sexual health peer educators, and I was often seeing my young people, and I like to think of myself as being pretty animated. I can certainly capture my young people. But they were on their cell phones, checking text messages. And it became really clear to me very, very quickly that we needed to find a way to be on the mechanisms that they were using to be able to communicate through the modes that they were communicating. And so that really led me to my dissertation concept. So I am now proposing, and I will be defending my dissertation proposal June 10th, I have a date. The idea is I have developed a sexual health app through formative research, qualitative focus group interviews. Really it was last fall that I conducted these focus groups, and now for the dissertation, my hope is to evaluate the app. In a 2-arm study, it'll be an RCT model, and really also focus on the usability of the app. It's really important and critical. There are sexual health apps out there. But what the literature says is that we're missing the mark. We're not designing them the way that the users want to use them. And that is absolutely critical from a health literacy perspective, or from just a broader public health communication perspective. So I will stop there. This is just really to give you a sense of what my research is. I will quickly add, though, I am very much interested in mentorship and mentoring other students. So if you know of master's students who are looking for field work, please send them my way. And I'll, of course, develop something and send it out to Attica to be able to share it with all of your students. Sure, we'll take questions as
Well, why don't you, if you have one or two very specific questions of Sonia, and then we'll have a more general discussion on this. And if there are any.
Chris?
You mentioned, I mean, it's something, I think the last statistic is something like 30,000 health apps on the market today, of all kinds. What are the weaknesses, particularly in the content area apps that you're interested in? When you say they don't hit the mark, what is it?
So the literature, as I understand it, is very specifically criticizes the sexual health information apps for the usability. The user design is not, it's not matching up with the population. So the way that they're being developed is either not with very much input from the communities that they're trying to reach, which is one of the main reasons that I thought it was really important to conduct the formative research that I conducted and to co-develop the app with my population of interest. And then the other piece that I've learned is that the way that the information is organized is also troublesome. It's also troublesome. It's not developed in necessarily with the content areas that the folks who are using it want to be seen. Okay, thank you.
Our next presenter is Nisha Bakari, who will also be talking about her dissertation, and she wasn't listed on the program, but we're very happy to have her also talking about her dissertation.
Thanks, Betty. So I just wanted to kind of start off by kind of as Sonia did. I also got my MPH at Columbia, and I sort of knew I was always going to go for a doctorate degree, but then but I had the great fortune to have some on-the-ground work experience with community-based participatory research in the Bronx with a research project that was focused on homeless families in New York City across 10 shelters. And so that's really how my dissertation ended up developing 7 or 8 years later. And I've also worked the preponderance of my career so far with a lot of social workers and psychologists, and really felt that there was a lot of need for interdisciplinary research with mental health and public health. And I felt like this research project really helped to bridge that gap in that we were looking at family functioning and mental health, but in a very kind of public health way in terms of the effect of environments and the broad effect of homelessness and trauma on families. And so that's the impetus for kind of what drove me to develop my proposal and research, and I was lucky enough to recently also be awarded a fellowship, a NIDA-funded fellowship through the National Development Research Institute, and it's based here in New York City, and we meet weekly and are able to share our work, and so I think that's another really valuable component that I have to complement with the great collaboration that I can do as well, or sharing the work that I can do with my colleagues in the program. And I guess I would just say that I really have been fortunate to have the mentorship that I've had here, and I think all of the professors that I've interacted with have played a really a role in kind of helping me to develop as a researcher, and so I really appreciate that. And I think in terms of finding committee members for your dissertation work, I think it's a combination of a whole bunch of things of, the rapport that you have with someone, the content area, and kind of what they can bring. And I think that no one person has to sort of play the role of everything, and they can each contribute something to the committee. And to just seek out help anywhere, kind of to anyone who will listen, really. And I think there's going to be a lot of open doors. So. Yeah.
Do you want to take a question or two?
Sure. Any questions?
From a very subjective perspective, but also somewhat an objective one, I'm really interested in all of you commenting to us, educating us about the choice of a public institution to get the TPH in, as opposed to perhaps an Ivy League private institution. I think the concept of overplaying the affordability factor is all very interesting. But having worked in both private and public institutions, I'm hoping that this rubs off on our DPH students at a certain level, where they see their mission to be perhaps somewhat different, and to see their destiny as perhaps distinctly different.
So I guess I would have to say that I think I appreciate the diversity that we bring, and kind of the real, for lack of a better word, the real world kind of experience that we bring. And I think a lot of people in the program kind of lived the experiences that they're researching and studying about, and I think that can really add a valuable component to how it informs your research.
I'd like to hear other people's opinions as you are making your presentations, just to educate us as to whether we are fulfilling our mission as a public institution at this higher level of education. Not a trick question.
So our next presenter, Dana Watnick, is going to talk about the work she does through her job for Healthy CUNY. And delighted to hear from her as well.
Thank you. So I'm going to actually get to your question in the beginning. So I didn't really think about it, but Sonia and Nisha and I are actually all cut from the same cloth in a way, that we all went to Columbia for our master's, and we're all in the Division of Population and Family, and we all decided to come here. And I think that the driver that brought me here was less about it being a public institution, just more about the content of what was going on here. That people focused a lot more on structural intervention and thinking about neighborhoods and communities than researchers were doing at Columbia. And there was a big migration of excellent talent that came over to CUNY just about the time that I was applying, and so it was very attractive to be here, and it's only become more so. So that's been really nice. And I guess I was told to think about, in preparing this little talk or discussion, how I got into research, and I think it starts way back when, being in my master's program and recognizing that I just had questions. And ever since then, I've been working at Einstein in social science research institute, where I've been gathering hard skills and improving upon the skills that I learned in my master's program. And I know how to interview people, and I know how to create a data collection tool, and I know how to run a focus group, and I have all these scattered skills now. It's really great. And so I think I came to where I am now at Healthy CUNY because of that work. And I don't know how much you guys all know about Healthy CUNY, but it's an initiative of CUNY that is trying to improve the overall health of students so that they can complete their academic careers here. And I was brought on as the sexual and reproductive health person. They have a pillar of tobacco and nutrition and alcohol, and now there's a component for sexual and reproductive health that I've begun. And my overarching, the task that I was kind of set to do was to try to help students reduce the barriers for their sexual and reproductive health to help them achieve their academic goals. So I kind of got to the research in a backwards way, where I started my fellowship and found out that all of a sudden I was getting this handful of undergraduate students that I needed to mentor on my research project. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't have a research project. So I went about trying to figure out exactly what it was that was of interest and necessary for students, and thinking about the larger goal and what the outcome should hopefully be, and then kind of carving out a niche that was doable in the time that I had. So I have this great group of Service Corps students. I think that's a new program this year in the undergrad across all campuses. I think I have two BMCC students, a Lehman student, 2 John Jay, and I had a Queensboro. And we've been working together to look at the way that emergency contraception is available in pharmacies around campuses. And we started thinking about this together because we weren't exactly sure what this meant and why this would be important for students. And so grabbing from some of what I knew from over my years at my Einstein job and how you do CPR and from some stuff that I learned in Chris's class, in her interventions class, we crafted a project together looking at important things that students would want to know about emergency contraception and where it was accessible to them around campuses, with the theory that increasing access, or at least knowing about your access to EC, would help you be able to achieve your goals a little bit better if you needed to prevent pregnancy at a particular moment. And so I collaborated with someone at the Bedstagger campaign, which is a part of the National Campaign to Prevent Teen and Unplanned Pregnancy. And we kind of, he and I and the students all sort of met together. He came from Washington, the students made a big presentation. And we started designing items that would collect data about the accessibility that would matter to students. So for example, they went into when we piloted this, they went into some pharmacies and they're like, oh, the CVS's all have self-checkout. That's really cool because then you don't have to ask anybody for it. I was like, oh, I would have never thought of that. So we started collecting data on that. And so it's been a really interesting process. It's taken a lot longer than I would have expected professionals to do, but not any longer than I would expect people in the community to kind of pull together. And they've pulled together a really great project that I think is going to be really helpful. And sort of a secondary piece to this, which Heidi Jones has been helping with, is the policy implications of this, because alongside of this, last year, there was a ruling that emergency contraception should be available to people just like aspirin, without, or at least one form of it, without needing ID. So we've also been collecting data alongside for that. And one of our master students, Jordan Leon Atkins, she's an excellent student. She's been helping us with that and will help with some of the analysis. So we're a very CUNY-centered project, and we've got people from all levels working on it, and it's really exciting. Anybody have any questions?
I'd like to know what your outcome variables are.
Well, one is this particular brand, Plan B One Step, actually available over the counter? So that's kind of our big policy question. Another is how many, well, you know, these are really good questions. And it's such a simple one. So that's the main policy one. I think the availability, we had a question about if chain pharmacies and local pharmacies had a different availability of emergency contraception. Another was the variety of emergency contraception available, so the number of types of emergency contraception. I don't think there's really one primary because we weren't really sure what we were going to get. So some of this is iterative, and now that the data are coming in, we're starting to look at that. And at this point, it's really a mixed methods approach because we're getting a lot of qualitative data that's coming in. So we're kind of iteratively asking these questions. We initially thought it was one thing, and now we're like, oh, well, actually, all of these stores are claiming that they're out of stock of the one brand that everybody can get. So we should probably look at that as an outcome. So, yeah.
Are you considering price and affordability?
Yes. So we're collecting data on price, and it seems that price varies, but there's also different brands that are available from different places and in different parts of the city.
Tangential, I guess. Any data on how many students enrolled in the ACA plan over the open enrollment?
I don't know that.
We don't, so we don't keep that, we don't haven't collected any, that's a good survey.
It is.
I'll do that.
Please.
There's one more in back.
Grace? Oh, I'm sorry.
What is the geographic coverage of the study? Is it all over New York City, or is it just the campuses where CUNY is located?
It's the 25 campuses where CUNY is located, and we used a particular mapping technique where we kind of use we block areas distance from the campus as well as from subway stations and visibility sites.
Would you allow me to give a slight pitch on Healthy CUNY?
Yeah.
This is one of our mandates as a public institution, is to engage ourselves more with the very large student body that comes through this university. No matter what our graduation rates may be, the opportunity of engaging an environment that promotes and supports health might impact on the lives of youth as they make choices along the way. I think reproductive health is being shown more and more to have a singularly more significant impact on women and their ability to complete their education and their career choices more than it does on men. It doesn't seem like an unintended pregnancy between a couple impacts more on the father as much as it does on the mother. So that is the issue of reproductive health. But certainly substance use and mental health are another very important perspective. The issue of diet and exercise and healthy living is another very important perspective. The availability of healthcare and healthcare coverage is another very, very important perspective. I think as we are trying to promote this as a priority for this university, the university at the current moment has not voiced in any of its policies any kind of stewardship towards 500,000 individuals that come through this university as degree and non-degree learners. These, compared to the population of the city, is an enormous percentage of people that live in the 5 boroughs of New York. And we hope, as a School of Public Health, to continue to take leadership and implement a program that is visible on all campuses and is a priority in terms of our stewardship as a university towards all ages, but I would say the youth, if you'll allow me to, who represent the majority of learners that come through the walls of our many campuses. So I just wanted to make a little pitch for Healthy CUNY, if you'll allow me to.
Thank you. Opportunity to make a little pitch too. Many of the students in our DPH program are very interested in community-based participatory research, and this is a wonderful example of knowing that what you're interested in is improving the sexual and reproductive health, but really working with the students and the participants, and the students are members of the community of interest here, as well as being involved in a research project to figure out what's really of interest to the students. So it hasn't gotten to the point of having, you know, it leaves lots of opportunities, and at another point there might be a predetermined outcome variable, but the first is to explore the range of issues that are relevant to the population involved. So it's exciting. And finally, people sometimes do research just because they're interested in a topic. And there's a research project day coming up, and friends who have overlapping interests can get together and do a project. So our next two presenters are going to present. Are you going to sort of present one at a time in any order on the program, or?
I'm going to talk kind of about the background a little bit.
Okay.
About, and then Angela's going to talk a little bit about some of the details of what we did.
Okay. So Christina Ventura Di Persia is going to start and tell us about their project.
So I want to start by saying that I came into this program in 2010, and my research interests have changed dramatically throughout the course of me being here. I came in and I was so focused, and I said, I only want to focus on cancer epidemiology, and I have gone from the end and back in terms of what I've wanted to look into to challenge myself, because I wanted this experience, this terminal degree, to be something that would give me exposure to anything that I was interested in, and maybe things I didn't realize I was interested in. So Nisha had mentioned that we live some of the experiences that we're interested in researching in. And some of the faculty members in this room will remember me being pregnant this time last year, going to school and having a lot of different experiences being pregnant, and I actually had gestational hypertension. So going through that whole experience of what kind of birth am I going to have, didn't know I would have a 22-hour long labor, you know, all these different things that go into it. I've been very focused on the experiences, the different factors that influence pregnancy, and that's been a personal interest of mine. So that's been something that I've tried to focus on, and I've been shaping my second exam and hopefully my dissertation on that. So also I am doing an independent study with Dr. Elizabeth Kelvin, and one of the things that we're researching is the female condom. So some of the research on the female condom that we've done in looking at Department of Health websites, while I was doing the research on this, I noticed, I said, there's not really a lot of information on sexually transmitted infection prevention in pregnant women specifically. And the outcomes of having an STI in pregnancy, there's a lot of negative outcomes for both the mother and the fetus. So that was something I was really interested in. So the way that we got involved in research, Ashley, Erin McKinney-Purpose, and I, was a little unorthodox. It was kind of just us talking and being friends from classes that we've taken. And you know, it was something that we always said that we have overlapping interests of, you know, Erin and Ashley being interested in STI and HIV prevention, and me really being specifically interested in the pregnancy experience and the factors for that. We wanted to do something. We thought it would be a great opportunity to work together to better you know, our resumes and our careers, and we got an email about this research symposium, and literally when we got the email we said, what can we do in a month? What can we, and it really happened this way. What can we do? What's a project that, this is something we talked about casually that was important, but we wanted to do something that was doable. We wanted to do a project that would be substantial but wouldn't be too much to handle. It was rough. It was very rough, especially with you know, spring break and right up to the deadline of the abstract and the poster submission. We had a couple hearing moments. But it was something that, you know, it was something that we all were personally interested in, but as friends, it was something that, hey, it was a great opportunity to spend time with, you know, people that we enjoyed our company with, and, you know, we got along really well, so it was something that we really wanted to focus on. And I want to also say that doing something like this, you don't have to wait on a faculty person to tell you, hey, this is a good thing to research. If you walk outside and walk down the street and have a question, you can answer it. You can go to the literature and do a systematic review. You can go on websites and analyze content. You can do that. And make sure you channel your friends in your classes, because they all have skills that you probably don't even realize, and experiences that are really going to be helpful. So, you know, that's just something to keep in mind, that if you're sitting there saying, you know, what faculty person am I going to work with? What's something that I can help build my resume or submit to APHA? The questions that you're asking yourself every day as you walk to the subway or walk to the train, that could be your career, that could be your dissertation, that could be the research symposium project for next year. You know, so it's just something where you don't have to wait for somebody to tell you. It's probably already there, and follow it and make it doable, and you can do something really great. So Ashley will talk about some of the details, and then we can talk about some of the challenges of doing something in a month's time, but we got it done. Did a good piece.
So our next presenter is Ashley Stang.
So when we had that month deadline, we started to really think about what can we do. So we basically started out with an outline of basically plotting out what our course of action was going to be. And our research question was really what information is out there for pregnant women and their partners with regards to sexually transmitted infections. And so we systematically went through, we used, since we had 3 researchers, myself, Christina, and Aaron, we used 3 different search engines, Google, Bing, and Mozilla. Google, Bing, and Yahoo, I'm sorry. And we only used Mozilla Firefox, and so we duplicated the searches. We had multiple search terms that we used, and then we came up with the 40 most common websites that popped up during those searches. And from those most common, from those 40 websites, we picked out the most common 15 and decided to analyze those using an instrument that, as we found, was not necessarily the best instrument for website analysis, but it was developed in the 1990s. It's called the SAM instrument, and but we used it nonetheless. And what we found was that in analyzing these websites was that most of them were not suitable or just adequate based on the information that was presented in the website. Also, some of the limitations were that the SAM instrument was not relevant for today's internet necessarily. We saw a lot of ads that were on the web pages that may have influenced the partners or the pregnant women themselves as far as when they were looking at the website content. Also, they didn't, as far as graphics or just the way the website was outlined, that wasn't necessarily adequate as far as how we were analyzing it. And as far as readability as well, we needed to, we found the readability scores to be way above what they should have been. It should be 7th or 8th grade, or even 5th or 6th grade, but it was 10th, 11th, even I think 14th or 15th grade level for some. So this was our research process. We did it in a month, and we were able to analyze those 15 websites thoroughly, and we did it again in a duplicate process, so we had hopefully inter-rater reliability with that. But we look forward to doing more analysis with the appropriate tool, possibly, and also just delving into what's out there in general and for pregnant women and their partners, and to hopefully, change what information is presented to women who possibly cannot access prenatal care and who are not given information by their providers. So that was the goal of this. I'm not sure if I should talk about my entrance into this program or not. I was not Columbia educated, but I got my MPH at the University of South Carolina at Columbia,
And then I spent some time at NIH as a microbiologist, and then I was looking at different programs in the New York area, also in the DC area as well. And actually came across CUNY by chance and sat in with Dr. Levin as kind of just a sample class when I was looking at programs, which was incredibly helpful to do that. And I kind of based my decision off of the feeling of the program more than anything. I just felt like it was very, like, at home. I don't know, but I'm very glad about my decision, and I think it's been a great journey so far.
Do you want to take a question?
Sure.
I think the follow-up to your question is a somewhat different facet, which is condom use during sexual exposure in pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's a lot of literature where condom use is almost excused, meaning, you know, it's an excused behavior by the male because of pregnancy prevention. And once the female partner is pregnant, she can't really use that backup forcible excuse on male partners. And so there is the whole question of what is exposure in fact heightened during pregnancy, and what are the rates of condom use during pregnancy as compared to in non-pregnancy females.
And that was backgrounding our whole concept of this, because we didn't see much about protection during pregnancy. That there was just a whole silence around sex during pregnancy and protection. So that definitely is coloring what is out, the information that's out there, and so that definitely lends importance to what.
So topic worth studying. I mean,
for sure.
If you're thinking about primary data collection, might be something you would consider.
And I also just wanted to add, I wanted to add too that in some of the research that I'm doing with Dr. Elizabeth Kelvin, that in seeing where the female condom was on certain Department of Health websites and even be on family planning websites. And that was some of the ideas, like the gears going on in my head, where I said, when I was pregnant, I never would have gone on a family planning website. And it assumes that somebody having sex is planning a family. I mean, even if you are looking at pregnancy prevention, it might not be the term per se that applies to you. So that even alone, I think that there's so many different issues. And anybody in this room who wants to do any kind of research, there's a lot of things we weren't able to do. So hopefully this is inspiring some research in the crowd. But there's a lot more to be done. This is a good tip of the iceberg, but there's a lot of different directions that are unfortunately not really well addressed in the literature. And like you had said, I personally feel that there has to be a heightened risk because the behaviors of pregnancy prevention and HIV and STI prevention seem to be separately considered, even though the risk behavior roots back to the same mechanism.
The issue also is whether infections diagnosed during pregnancy preceded the pregnancy or occurred during pregnancy. It's very unclear. And the rates of prevalence rates based on screening during prenatal care, it's very difficult because many of these women may have an absent health record in the period contiguous to pregnancy to say whether or not they have been screened and were negative or positive. So there's lack of clarity there. And from a public health perspective, it's a major issue because of the rates of prematurity and the incredible cost of preterm labor associated with cervical colonization. There's no question that both gonorrhea and chlamydia are both very significant culprits. And as you know, in certain communities now, there's also a gradual rise in unfortunately, in RPR and syphilis seroprevalence amongst pregnant women. And it's really an issue.
It's such an issue with a lot of consequences, definitely. A lot, for sure.
I think on the communication side, why you have such a paucity of any relevant is two things. One, it's complicated for everyone to have a site, but two, especially with health-related sites, these sites are constructed by medicalized people and not people who understand public health and community. Because you would start with, if you land on the site, you've got what, 7 to 15 seconds to basically have any stickiness. There's something here I can get. And none of them, to your statement, begin with any of the realities of the psychosocial aspects of having sex during pregnancy. There's no stickiness to these sites. Forget about health literacy. Forget about design. There's just nothing relevant to the actual lived experience. And I don't see a change in that. It's just pervasively medicalized.
And one other thing that we didn't bring up is that we didn't actually get a chance to assess the mobile versions of these sites. And mobile websites, the display on your phone or your iPad is going to be markedly different because I think mobile sites in general, the design of them is relatively new, the adjustment. So even the presentation of information in that way is different. And we're thinking that if people aren't accessing prenatal care, that there's so many avenues to access digital information, but we didn't assess just layout, content, delivery, like you said, stickiness in the mobile version. And I think that that's something, I don't know if the instrument we use would even be relevant for that, but it's something that needs to be measured because, as the dean had said, there's a lot of consequences to this. We need to do that.
Thank you very much to all our DPH students.
This is the final session followed by refreshments.
How are you? Haven't seen you in a long time. Good. Come
We were sitting next to each other.
Thank you.
That's all you'll say. We both believe
I am blown away.
Thank you very much.
Stop doing whatever else you're doing. Inspire these students to produce some work like this. It's the hand of a
Have a hot date?
Oh, so are you?
No, I get nowhere with this guy. Nowhere.
I'm saying I don't know what I need and how many copies I have, and then we figure out how many books designated.
Yeah, I mean, there's It's difficult. I'm
Have
getting
you-
there.
Yeah.
I'm like a broken record.
Thank you for getting my back on the PR thing. I was deer in headlights, and I'm like, and you that was the right answer. And I was like,
James is in our department.
what is that?
What's his name? His name is James Schaefer. He's actually was trained as a